Hello and welcome to the NC podcast. My name is Natasha Collins and I am the host and founder of NC Real Estate, which includes its members club for landlords and property investors to come and build profitable property portfolios that completely align with their goals. If you haven't been to my website yet, I don't know why you haven't, but do head on over to ncrealestate.co.uk, pick up all of the freebies that I've got going on over there, and take a look at my programs and the services that I offer. So make sure that you are doing that. There is so much goodness over there. So today, let's get on to that. I am very, very, very excited to welcome Danielle Bell, Hungry Mummy, onto the podcast. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Natasha. I love your chirpiness. That's infectious, by the way.
Thank you.
That absolutely is. No, thank you for having me. I had said to you just previously, look, I've been really looking forward to this. I know that we had scheduled previously and life got in the way. But yeah, massive thank you. Very excited to be here. So thank you so much for that.
Pleasure. You've just moved house. That's what's happened, isn't it?
Yeah. So as if the global pandemic wasn't enough, for all our stress levels, I decided to move house. So we'd actually agreed to sale prior to coronavirus, due to move out on the day that lockdown kicked in. So that put a bit of a spanner in the works. Fast forward on 4 months, we are now in our new home, but I am grayer. I am older looking, and I've consumed more alcohol than I should have.
That's the same for everybody during lockdown. Seriously, I'd got to a point where it's like, okay, stop going and buying as much wine.
I know, but when the trousers don't fit anymore, you're like, oh, okay, maybe I should stop.
No. Okay, let me tell everybody a little bit about you. If you haven't heard of Danielle before, then you need to go and check her out on Instagram. I'll put the link below. Danielle is a professional property investor, property sourcing specialist, entrepreneur, co-host of Progressive Property Network Belfast, and founder of Property Sourcing Made Simple. And today we are going to have a conversation about how to find the right property. But first, how did you get started in property investment?
Good question, Natasha. And so I'm going to give you the shortened version. Property has always been in my family's blood, from I was little. But the crash of 2008 was not kind to my family by any stretch of the imagination. So my parents lost the entire portfolio that they had built from scratch, bar our family home. So that sent massive shockwaves through our family for a long, long time. And if I'm honest, it's still a very sore point today. So I'd always wanted the security of property, but I needed the education around it, which they did not have. And I believe that perhaps if they had the education with the property, things may not have been quite so dire. Fast forward on again, I kind of did the university, fell into financial analysis, worked for the New York Stock Exchange, but always had this burning desire for property. I think it was the physicality of the owning these properties, of driving down streets and saying, well, that's mine and that's mine and that's mine. I kind of was lured in by that buzz, and I wanted a bit to leave a legacy that I knew my parents had worked so hard to try and leave, and it got completely wiped out. So my husband and I had said, look, let's try and start the buy-to-let route. We gathered together a deposit, but what we were not planning for was having to do multiple rounds of IVF to conceive our son. So if anybody knows, they will know that IVF is exceptionally expensive. It is not a cheap process. So the money that we had set aside for our buy-to-let was completely wiped out. It's okay because I've now got a beautiful 3.5-year-old son. That's fine. He was bloody expensive, but that's okay. He's here.
Yes.
Yeah, he is. So I had to look at getting into property without the capital. So I educated myself on sourcing and trading. And I guess the rest is history, because the last 2.5 years I have just put my head down and focused on my end goal. And I say that I'm going to build an empire, and I really do mean it. People laugh at me when I say that, but that just makes me more hungry, if I'm honest. So that's in a nutshell, Natasha. That's how I got into property. No money, no knowledge, no context. So just educated myself on a strategy that could afford me further down the line the ability to build and scale. And that's what it's done.
So let's talk about that strategy. What strategy have you used so far?
Okay, so I have just been, I started off sourcing buy-to-lets. So that's what I was doing, sourcing buy-to-lets for investors. As I progressed on that journey, and it did happen quite quickly, I found myself building relationships with these investors who happen to be high net worth investors. And, you know, I had been hearing and reading that, you know, you can JV and you can raise angel finance and you can use other people's money and no money down. And up until that point, I believed it to be hocus pocus. And as anybody would, without the education, you know, you're ignorant to it. So when I eventually picked up the courage to try and raise finance, that's when things turned around on their head for me massively. And I'm now the investor as opposed to the sourcer, and I like that. But I am very, very adamant that every property investor should have sourcing and trading properties in their toolkit at all times. You know, there will come a day when you can't take every deal, Natasha. You just can't. You know, every deal that comes in front of you, just can't take every deal. But you shouldn't leave it on the table either. And that's where I feel that the property trading expertise and the property sourcing ability certainly comes in as a very handy tool. You know, it's a cash flow generator, so it's a cash injection, and that's vitally important to have as well. You know.
Yeah, I completely get it. We all
yeah.
For most people, I'm going to say this because I don't think a lot of people do say this honestly enough. Property investors for the most part, before they go into their retirement, whatever that looks like, everybody's got their property investments, but they've also got something else going on the side where they're also getting that cash injection from.
100%. That is, do you know, that's actually a breath of fresh air, and I'll tell you why. I don't buy into the get rich quick schemes, and I think they're too heavily promoted there. I know you're spending some of your time in the US, but you are very on point with the UK market, and you will know that the large training organizations are promoting, you know, millionaire status in a 3-day course. That's just not reality. That's not life. And if your capital's tied up in a bloody property, you need the cash flow coming in. So having these properties is great, and the asset base is fantastic, but it's not spitting out life-changing sums of money today. And that, such a breath of fresh air to hear you say that, because you're 100% right. People do not speak about this enough. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what your alternative strategies are, but for me, aside of the investing, sourcing and trading is absolutely in my toolbox. Absolutely in my toolbox. You know?
Yeah, I completely get it. I was telling someone yesterday, I said the largest property portfolio I ever worked for was £500 million worth of property. Wow. It took 500 years to build. That is a family estate that went up sometime in the mid 1500s, and they've always owned the land, and they've just, every time it's been knocked down, they've rebuilt on top of it. And now, so okay, they can live off that.
500 years. I mean, I speak to people. You're so right. I mean, you're so on point with this. I speak to people, and, you know, they ask, what have you got and what are you doing? And okay. And they're like, oh, you know, right. Okay. Does it take that long? And I'm like, what? Really? You know, really? But it's refreshing to speak to somebody who appreciates that viewpoint, because it's not widely spoken about. And it's in fact, if you said this within property forums, you'd probably be blocked. They would delete you pretty quickly.
From a lot of property forums. Don't you worry.
Yeah, oh really?
I've already been in there, and that's happened.
I've been temporarily blocked and then let back in again, and I'm still rattling a few cages even as we speak. But do you know what? What I'd say to that, Natasha, is if you're blocked, they've noticed you, and if you're starting to get some sort of hate or, you know, unsavory comments, you've rattled cages for the right reasons. In fact, if you don't have haters, you're not big enough. So That's true. If there's nobody hating on you, then you're not doing enough. So yeah, onwards and upwards for sure.
Should we talk about finding properties?
Please.
So there's two big things which I know that people get stuck on: finding money and finding properties. So let's talk finding properties today. Let's talk about, how do you find the right property for you? What is the process?
Okay, so I mean, using my investment strategy, and my investment strategy is not sexy, it's not attractive, it's buy to let. Okay, so however, what I would say is, never have I been more thankful for a non-sexy strategy than in the middle of a pandemic, because I buy 2 up, 2 down, mid-terraced Victorian properties. That's my thing. Okay, they work all day long. Yeah, they do. So I was happy with that strategy, but a lot of people say to me, "Oh, would you not like HMO, or would you not?" And this works for me. Okay, I have rent to rent HMOs, but in terms of buying, my assets are buy to let. The way that I find my properties, Natasha, has always been via building massive relationships with 1 or 2 agents in my area. So I made that my absolute priority when I started in sourcing, because you have to recognize your skill sets and your strengths. I didn't have the knowledge for the property, although I was putting that in the background through my education. But what I did have was an ability to converse with people and to do it confidently. So I made that my strongest selling point, and quite literally knocked on the doors of estate agents and just sort of stalked them. Don't want to say that too much. I don't want to get arrested, but I guess I did stalk 1 or 2 agents in my local area. Told them what it is that I was looking to do. I was met with laughter from some, but I was also met with faith from 2. And that's all it took. That's all it took, was a little bit of understanding and a little bit of faith. And from that point onwards, and this probably sounds too good to be true, but honestly, from that point onwards, nurturing that relationship with these 2 agents has built my portfolio, and has built the portfolio of the investors that I was working with in the early days. So always kind of being that first refusal call has helped me massively. So how do I find my properties? Well, I guess I cheat and they find them for me. And I'm not being arrogant about that, but they know now what I want. They know what I need. And if they get it on their books, I'll always get that call. And, I think that's, if you're going to be a serious property investor, and if certainly looking at property sourcing as a serious strategy, that's how you have to position yourself.
And so you've given them a set then of criteria that they need to send you. Is that right? You're not going to get everything that's on their book. No.
They know that it has to, be a certain gross yield. I'm sort of working with 10% or more gross yield. That's my minimum. They know that I have to be getting a minimum cash flow of at least £300 a month after all costs. So in terms of the purchase price, they know what I'm looking for. When I give them the bare bones, and if it doesn't tick what I need minimum, it's on to the next. But I'll always get the calls on those properties that meet that criteria. So it is a bit of a cop out, to be fair, because but listen, you earn your stripes in your early days trading and sourcing. Okay, so you are putting in that time and that effort, that sweat effort. But when you get to a certain stage in your journey, I guess you do have the benefit of outsource, and I have definitely outsourced that.
Oh, should we tell me about your sweat effort? Because everybody only thinks they see this perfect thing on social media from all of us.
Yeah.
How many hours were you putting in a day?
But this is I was going to swear there, but I won't. Look, I'm not going to swear on your podcast, but this is another thing, and I tell people that I work with privately, nobody tells you about their shit days on Facebook. Nobody tells you about their shit days on Instagram. It's all, fancy restaurants, and I'm drinking my champagne, and look, I'm on holiday again, and that's great. And that's certainly the things that property can buy you with financial freedom. That's fab if that's what you want, if that's what floats your boat. Great. But you don't see the 15, 16, 17, 18-hour days. You don't see the 5 a.m. starts. Now, I'm a big fan of the 5 a.m. club, so I do swear by that. but they don't see you at the laptop at 10 o'clock at night, analyzing the deals, replying to investor emails, sorting out builder quotes. They don't see that. They see you boarding the plane to go on your next holiday, or they see you in a nice restaurant with your husband or your wife, or that's what they see. So yeah, hustle. God damn, is there hustle involved in this? I mean, it's just, you don't. But then again, I think you'll agree, you don't make any apologies for that. It's not. People think that being your own boss or being an entrepreneur is fancy. It's alluring. Yeah, it's got a lovely title, but there's pressure. There's a lot of pressure. You pay the bills at the end of every month. You are responsible for that paycheck that is supposed to come in. While I don't miss corporate world, certainly the security of a well-paid paycheck at the end of every month can, give you that bit of a security blanket. I wouldn't change it for the world, but the sweat, and this again, I'm gonna knock on the large training companies' doors again and say that they do not tell you that the sweat effort that's involved. They don't tell you of the hustle and the grind that you must put in, and the persistence that you must continuously come up with every single day, and it's every day. So you meet newbies to the world of property, and they've done 5 viewings and they throw the towel in because they didn't get the deal. And I'm thinking, really? Try 25, 30 viewings, then come back to me. Then let me know how you're feeling. So yeah, hustle, sweat, effort, it's absolutely essential. And if you don't have a work ethic in place, don't even bother. Cutthroat.
I agree. And it can be, you can get that effort, but you have to realize that it takes time and time and time, and everybody who you think is successful spends a huge amount of their time. Like, I don't know about you, but for me, I feel like my success goes like this. Occasionally it goes like this, but I've not realized, then it plateaus again. I'm like, here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's because you're so deep in the trenches of what you're doing that sometimes it passes you by, and I would be prone to burnout. And that's definitely something I've had to really take stock of and sort of reassess from my own perspective, scheduling commitments, and even with mentees, and I'm sure you mentor as well, Natasha, so you'll know that setting boundaries very early is really important. Otherwise it opens a whole can of worms, but you can become consumed in just that one element of your business, and everything else is just passing you by. So I